Welcome to Stories Found. Each week we feature funny, weird, and mostly true stories from writers, artists, and storytellers around the world. I'm your host, Ava Love Hannah, a writer and humorist from Austin, Texas. Joining me is my writing partner, audio engineer, and all-around cool guy, Paul Hannah. You're listening to Stories Found. Our featured organization this week is the Creative Center at University Settlement, a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing the creative arts to people with cancer, chronic illnesses, and through all stages of life. The Creative Center is proud to have hospital artist in residence programs in more than 30 healthcare sites around the New York metropolitan area, free of charge art workshops every day of the week, an online gallery representing professional artists living with illness, and more. I invite you to visit them at thecreativecenter.org to learn more about them and to see how you can help support their mission. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Stories Found. This week we're talking to the award-winning writer of screen and stage, Sophia Valera Heinecke. Sophia is not only a writer, but also a dramaturg, archivist, and producer from Gordonsville, Virginia. She's also the Arts and Wellness Manager at the Creative Center for people with cancer and other chronic illnesses. Sophia is drawn to work in the theater because it involves a deep consideration of human bodies and their emotional, intellectual output as the central material for live performance. Not only is Sophia an amazingly talented creative, she is also a fantastic person and, as you'll soon see, a pretty great sister. I'm excited for you to meet her today. Hi, Sophia. Thanks for joining us today to chat about your story, The Summer We Built a Pool.
Hi, Ava. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a long time since I've been to Austin, but I'm picturing it hopefully pretty unchanged by the pandemic.
Well, I think we might actually be even a little bit more crowded, so it's still a lovely, wonderful place to be, though.
Nice.
Well, we are excited to have you joining us on Stories Found, and I just want to start by saying I really love this story. When you sent it over, I read it straight through, and I actually stopped what I was doing. I went to find Paul, and I said, hey, you've got to listen to me read this to you right now. So I have to say I really appreciate you sending it to us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really love the work that you all do with playwrights. I think there's regional theater, but I think there's so many different ways for playwrights to be engaged by creative people all across the United States and the world. So in reflecting on the story and recording it, I felt just this abundance of gratitude. That's kind of the landing point of the story. I felt that even more in spades, and there are a couple of reasons why. The first, I work in healthcare spaces here in New York City where I'm based, and the entirety of COVID, my heart was so with all of the nurses and doctors that I interact with at my job every single day. And at certain points in the story, the pool is framed as a necessity. And the necessity of the pool is, of course, in the context of the circumstance of just that really hot summer that I spent in Virginia with my family, who can be quite trying, but are just the most loving people. So yeah, I really wanted to take a second to sort of reflect and acknowledge on the privilege of my life. And yeah, how lucky we were. The thing also on my mind too is it's mentioned in the story that at the early part of COVID, a tree fell on my mom's house, and the tree fell in a way where it bisected my brother's room and his bed, where he had been lying not but a minute before the tree hit the house. And
wow.
It's really one of those things where my brother and I are very close for a number of reasons. But now when I think about this story, I think I'm just even more thankful that my brother is still alive.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it's something that I just feel compelled to mention. I also love that this is going to be available in September. It's his birthday month as well. And so I really think of this as a chance to honor him. He's a special education teacher, and our parents really raised us to kind of give in service to others. So we were really, really thinking of that all through COVID, even the moments where we were really kind of at each other's throats too.
Well, I have to say, one of the things that I like best about the story is that it is both relatable and unique, and it is really relatable, and it deals with adult children dealing with their parents and adult sibling relationships. But I think it's also really unique in that it tells a story in a very specific time period, and that is these early sort of frantic shutdown days of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what was it like to try to write something about your life, but also to do that in an unprecedented time?
Well, my writing process as a playwright has always kind of encompassed these two worlds where I'm doing a lot of really sort of like distant visioning of other people's lives. I write a
Hmm.
lot about kind of hidden pockets of America and Canada that I feel like people really are engaged in a life of hardship, but are really interested in working through things. And so
Hmm.
that's one sort of area of my playwriting practice, and the other is deeply personal.
Hmm.
Um, written a trilogy of plays that are about myself and different relationships with found objects in my life.
Oh, wow.
And it's called the Trash Lord trilogy. Because I do love trash, and I think of it as sort of an infinite but finite resource that constantly is asking to be reinvented.
Hmm.
And that I think is the best of a long lived life, is like just these opportunities for constant reinvention and thinking a little bit about what we've been through and how we can grow from that. So when I think about this piece reflecting on the building of the pool, which is
Hmm.
still in my mom's backyard in Gordonsville, I think of it really as just a time where we just really didn't know what was going to happen next. And for me, that's particularly hard because I have high functioning anxiety and I love a to-do list. I
Hmm.
love a game
Hmm.
plan. And so I really think the coming together around the kind of action steps of building the pool as something that we could kind of control, even though the
Yes.
sort of variables of landscaping in an area where like there's a lot of red clay, we couldn't really control even certain aspects of that. So
Hmm.
I think about this writing as really an extension of the work I was doing as a playwright in reflecting on, myself in the context of these found objects that kind of changed my life, but
Hmm.
really, outside of New York City, where the environment of found objects is kind of like a replacement for nature. Um,
Yeah.
I really think about how this experience changed my relationship with looking to cycles of nature as a way to sort of live my life.
Hmm.
And looking to sort of the natural environment as a role model in a sense of finding the time and the space to like be really present in community and also take time away from that. But yeah, that part of COVID being at home, there was a lot to negotiate. And I really felt lucky that, my brother and I, by and large, like we get along really well. And
Hmm.
we tend to kind of side together versus our parents too. So
That's
that kind of
important,
thickens the
yeah.
plot. Yeah.
Well, and I think what's so interesting about this story is yes, it is like the summer you built a pool, but it wasn't just any summer, right? This was sort of this scary pandemic summer. And I think you've captured a lot of what was really happening there. I mean, yes, there the news reports will tell you what was going on, but your story captures that need to be with family, that desire to be outdoors because that was safe for us. But it also focuses on how your family dynamic was affected. While you were writing, did you go, I hope these little details will make sense to future readers as well?
Yeah, I really have thought about that a little bit. I think that what the broad experience of COVID is sort of universally captured in the specifics of the story, in the sense that like there's discussion about what it was like to just sort of try and go out and buy things, though the things
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in the story are like not basic household items. This
Right.
sort of task of like figuring out how to chlorinate the pool, and thinking about like what kind of pump that the pump that my stepdad and my brother ended up rigging was like not originally a pool pump, and then eventually like last year when COVID was sort of at this kind of nexus of turning from a pandemic to an endemic, they
Mm-hmm.
like ordered actually the correct pump, but prior they had just kind of rigged something together. So I appreciate the creativity that kind of takes. But
Right.
yeah, I think too, it was just a lot of contrast for what I had experienced in like the first few weeks that I was in New York before I came to Virginia. And really when I left Virginia, I really thought that I was never gonna spend that much time there again. And
Right.
I still really haven't, but I'll tell you the way that I got from New York to Virginia was my mom physically drove and picked me up.
Oh,
Like
wow.
that is how much my family loves me, despite the fact that like my mom and I are quite different, though we have a big overlap in our faith and spirituality.
Hmm.
That maternal instinct, I think, just really kicked in, and she just couldn't wait to literally, like, she drove all the way up 95. And I just will be forever indebted to her for that. So we really did try to be as helpful as we could, even though, yeah, I was working full time. My brother was pursuing his master's degree. It was really a busy time, and my stepdad is
Hmm.
always very involved in his work. He works actually for JLG Lifts, which as
Hmm.
a theater person is kind of cool, because if you're ever like in a Broadway theater, those are always the lifts that they
Oh,
use to like
wow.
build the sets. So I'm always like,
Hmm.
man, that's so cool. But he's like, it's not that cool.
Uh, well, I have to say, your writing is absolutely beautiful. Who are some of your writing influences?
I really try to not think specifically about writers. I think more about pieces.
That works too, yeah.
But someone that I always love to mention, I love the folklore and sort of Americana storytelling that's encompassed in Bob Dylan's songs,
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
particularly the album Desire from 1973, I believe it is.
Hmm.
But the thing that I love about Bob Dylan is that Bob Dylan, like, changes constantly every like 5 years of his career. He's
Yeah.
writing from like a really different perspective. He's behaving as kind of a different human being based on the kind of learning and growth that he's undergone. So I think about Bob Dylan a lot. Right now, I've been really inspired by the writings of Ruth Gilmore Wilson,
Hmm.
who writes a lot about prison abolition, as well as an academic named Arturo Escobar, who thinks a lot about like the plurality of universes and like how
Hmm.
different futures are possible. And then I really have to say, one of the plays that's influenced me most is the Lynn Nottage play Intimate Apparel, which is actually going to become
Hmm.
an opera. And I'm so excited to see that.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I feel like other than that, there are a lot of playwrights specifically in my community that I really look to and I really love. Emma Goldman Sherman
Hmm.
is a playwright that I interact with pretty frequently on New Play Exchange.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I feel like I could send a long list, but I don't know. I really
Well,
haven't engaged with theater in the same way since COVID either, and that's been
it
pretty hard.
I think exactly. It's been different for all of us, right? Like it used to be this process and we understood it. And now there is the are we going to stay open? Are we going to make it through an entire run? So I think community has been so important for playwrights right now is to really be able to talk to each other and say, well, where are you at now? So I do have one final question for you. And you said that the pool still exists. Is it still being used? And if so, how's that tiki bar coming along?
Well, there's no tiki bar that's been built yet because the sort of last
Ah.
big family event that happened, my brother moved. He was living with my mom up until like about 6 months ago, and he moved
Hmm.
out. And he's now living with his two really dear friends who he's known for like 5, 6 years now.
Hmm.
And so my mom, I think, is still getting good use out of the pool, which if you are, on the aging spectrum anywhere,
Hmm.
that swimming is a really good low impact exercise.
Hmm.
And yeah, my mom and stepdad are in good health at this point, but I do think it's a really wonderful resource to have for older adults. I know the place where my office is in New York, it's in a building with a YMCA, and
Hmm.
the elders in our community in Chinatown, they still ask like every day when the pool will be open, and they haven't opened it up yet. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
the pool at my mom's house is getting good use, if only by my mom
Good.
and the bats. But yeah.
It's okay. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Sophia. It has been lovely.
Oh, thanks so much, Ava. Yeah, great work that you all do. I'm so appreciative to take the time. So thank you.
Thank you. Stories Found is now proud to present The Summer We Built a Pool by Sophia Valera Heinecke.
To fully accept myself as a queer person, I could no longer ignore the significance of my star sign. I'm a religious person, so I would never tell anyone who believes in astrology that this is not a useful tool. Astrology and religion are tools to enrich and connect in this first life.
Last summer, I could no longer deny the fact that as a Cancer sign, one of the only things that calms me down is a large body of water. I'll take anything, pool, lake, river, but show me the ocean. God, I love the ocean. And I only made it to see her once last summer. I figured I could bike to Coney Island from my Brooklyn apartment if we got to the point where New Yorkers could no longer take the train. We got to that point. I biked out there and stared at her all day long, hoping that my life would eventually emulate the ebb and flow of the water. Suddenly, the trash would be sucked back, and the water would clear, and the ragged glass and the sand would turn to gemstones, and I would realize, like the ocean, life is so big that even if it's a little tainted, it mostly isn't. Last summer was the first summer I had spent in Virginia since I was 16, biding my time there until I felt safe enough to go back to the city. I'll remember it forever for reasons obvious and not. My mom stopped bickering with my stepdad, not all the way, but about one thing in particular. She just went for it, and he finally resigned. I guess a global pandemic will do that, help you pick and choose your battles. Finally, the world had given my mom sound reasoning to demand a pool on her 5-acre lot with the electrical wires running in the sun overhead out in Gordonsville, Virginia. My brother and my mom went to Costco and bought the largest above-ground pool they could afford, I'm told around $300, not realizing that the model picked would be the least expensive part of the pool building endeavor. There was the sand to level the clumpy clay underneath the pool, and the fence mandated by the county to keep drunk intruders or children from sneaking in and drowning, and of course, the water to fill the pool. To save money, my mom thought we might just throw the hose in and fill the pool, but thankfully my stepdad reminded her that we're on a well. 500 gallons would set us back a few showers. My mom and brother built the pool the day after she got out of school. COVID had made it a rough year for all of us, but my mom particularly. She was teaching at a deeply under-resourced school where the students and teachers were given no protections or flexibility by their administrators in their time of greatest need. Using the stress and anxiety building in her body, she erected the pool frame totally alone in less than 24 hours. Stepdad got assigned the water sourcing task in an effort to save the well water. 4 days later, Jimmy, the pool guy, who came highly recommended by the internet, arrived to deliver alkaline water. I didn't meet him, but apparently my brother got a weird vibe from his too long pinky nails and extended periods of fidgeting. Our stepdad laughed it off. He sells water for a living. It's a little weird, but his price was good. That was how we felt at Walmart, too, when we realized you could buy chlorine in bulk, weaving double-masked in and out of the aisles to stay very far away from the many Gordonsville residents who did not recognize the need for masks or fear the global pandemic. Mom was afraid the dog might eat the bulk chlorine if the container was left open, so we got the more expensive tablets in the double-sealed container. When the pool was deeply chlorinated and full of water, my brother rigged up a pump with a filter and stepdad's supervision, but there was still a long way to go. Mom had hastily leveled the pool, making level a generous word to describe the sand underneath. One cannonball our stepdad cajoled as he surveyed the sloping plastic barriers, and the living room will look like the beach. Ah, the beach. Not the same as the homegrown pool, no fence required because it cannot be contained. We couldn't get to the beach, so we were very thankful, even if the cost of fun was also the threat of flooding the house. It hadn't been a banner year at Gordonsville Manor, aka my mom's house. A tree fell on the house in the earliest and scariest part of the pandemic. The house was the fullest it had been since we were children, with 5 of us there, but never before did we all have a full day of meetings to take, bobbing and weaving in and out of every corner to find the best Wi-Fi signal. The pool was paradise, even with a sloping floor and an army of water skiers. The hardest part of building the pool was the part I was drafted into, the building of the county-mandated safety fence. There was much discussion. Should we do a cheap, slat picket fence or lattice stapled to thin poles or just chicken wire and fallen branches? Nothing met the designated safety standards, so it was truly my excellent idea to splurge on pre-made fence panels, 10 feet high, 6 feet wide. The price of lumber had gone up dramatically, but this was a worthwhile investment, especially for us young people, as we were sometimes called, who would be digging the holes and placing the fence. For the next 5 Saturdays, when my brother wasn't studying for his master's and I wasn't administering senior center photography classes on my laptop, we were challenged with putting the fence up around the pool. This was the job that most reinforced the pool as a necessity. We would dig 4-foot deep post holes and move 10-foot panels in 90-degree heat with 90% humidity. We would dig, place the post, pack the dirt to fill the rest of the hole, try some semblance of re-leveling around the fence towards the pool. The rocky fallow clay made this the hardest part, but once things were stable, we would drill the fence to the post at 3 critical places. We did this like so many signature tasks of our childhood, over and over again. We would dig and sweat and drill, and when we couldn't take it anymore, we would throw our bodies in the pool and get back out and go right back to it. As someone who spends a good amount of time writing, a task that can feel like there's no definite ending point, it felt pretty good to see such progress and reap the benefits immediately. A few friends who came to see the pool, to experience it 6 feet apart and masked, were not enamored with its handmade charm. Some wondered if we felt we needed more mosquitoes on our property, as the pool would surely attract hordes. We quickly realized the pool wouldn't be the main attraction for the mosquitoes, that the pool, in attracting the mosquitoes, would be the main attraction for a flock of bats. We discovered this reclining against the stable side of the pool, watching a cotton candy sunset, my brother, his girlfriend, and I. Quick flashes of black at first made me feel like I had some kind of floater in my eye, but my brother confirmed that I was not seeing things. Bats, 3 to 5 inches big, were dive-bombing the pool, almost invisible at dusk, just skimming the water and our shoulders to bite the mosquitoes before they could bite us. Though I was tempted to stay, my brother's girlfriend cautioned we should get out. Bats are fantastic, but they also have rabies sometimes. The pool remains a sanctuary, and I haven't been there since I returned to New York last September, but I can't wait to see it again, to tell its story, one of communal triumph and impulse buying. My mom sends me pictures sometimes of the metallic bugs that she finds floating on the surface of its water, or when the water's particularly green when there's a lapse of chlorine infusion. My brother went on to build a changing room. He also got his first ever full-time job and finished his master's degree, and he has plans for a tiki bar once the price of lumber goes down, if it ever does. Do we really need that? A tiki bar? I asked him one night on the phone. We need to spend as much time outside as we can. While I'm not sure the bar is a need, he's right. Outside. We need to be present outside in our bat and mosquito-filled ecosystem as much as we can. We need to experience the healing property of water. Having something to look forward to is a need. Observing the richness of the forest and the vastness of the sky, the renewed appreciation I felt for any and every outdoor space will be with me forever. I will carry this gratitude with me out of the pandemic year. Together with people that I can effectively communicate with 70% of the time, we have the ability to build things from the ground up. It would be easy to hold shame around the pool's imperfections, the many adjustments that will need to be made as the ground around continues to shift. Adjusting, we can now recognize as another necessity, even if sometimes it's an unfortunate one. I have never been so thankful for green water, and I can't wait to get in it. Even if it's a little tainted, it mostly isn't, and it's ours to use and share.
You've just heard The Summer We Built a Pool by Sophia Valera Heinecke. If you'd like to read more of Sophia's work, you can visit her website, sophiavalera.heinecke.com. You can also find her on NPX, the New Play Exchange. We'll have a blog post with more information about Sophia, as well as a link to her website, social media pages, and places you can find more of her work. You can find all of that on our website, storiesfound.com. Our sponsor this week is Alicia Verdier Photography. A queer woman-owned business in Houston, Texas, Alicia's work is stunning. She uses natural light to capture life's moments. I've seen her work and it's gorgeous. If you're in the greater Houston area or near enough to visit, make sure to check out her website and schedule portraits, headshots, or event photography. Get more info on her site, aliciaverdierphotography.com. We'll have a direct link to her site on storiesfound.com. Thanks for listening to Stories Found. We've been your hosts, Ava Love Hannah and Paul Hannah. Get more info about this week's episode, subscribe to our newsletter, or submit your own story and be a featured storyteller in a future episode. You can do all that and more on our website, storiesfound.com. Stories Found was recorded at ELA Studios deep in the heart of Austin, Texas.